They say every hidden truth has someone guarding it, and often that guardian isn't a stranger, it's the person who once knew you best. For Meghan Markle, that person isn't a royal insider, a palace aide, or a journalist. It's the man she once called her husband, Trevor Engelson. Before the crowns, cameras, and royal titles, there was Trevor. He wasn't a prince, but a Hollywood producer drawn to a young actress who seemed unstoppable. To him, Meghan was captivating, smart, magnetic, and full of dreams that stretched far beyond the screen. But what Trevor didn't realize back then was that Meghan wasn't just chasing dreams, she was building a plan. She didn't just move forward, she made sure to erase everything she left behind. Their story ended long before the world knew her name, but Trevor didn't walk away empty-handed. He walked away with memories and secrets. Secrets about the woman she was before the Duchess, stories that cling to her like shadows she can't quite shake. And among them, there's one story that refuses to disappear, the one that could change everything we thought we knew about Meghan Markle. It was a night in Toronto, 2016, one that nearly shattered Meghan's royal dream before it ever took shape. While the public saw the polished Duchess-to-be, Trevor remembered a different version of her, the host, the connector, the one who could keep the night alive long after the lights went out. That side of Meghan didn't appear out of nowhere. It was born years before Harry, in a place where appearances were everything, and masks were easy to wear. Rewind to Jamaica, 2011. The air was heavy with warmth, the music pulsed through the night, and Meghan Markle was riding the wave of happiness. She had just married Trevor Engelson, the man convinced he understood her completely. Their wedding wasn't just a ceremony, it was an experience. Palm trees swayed, laughter echoed across the beach, and everything felt effortless. But amid the toasts and dancing, there was one moment no one forgot. Meghan sat at a table, rolled up her sleeves, and began rolling joints. Not a few, but dozens, over 100, perfectly made for her guests. People saw it then as a playful gesture, calling her the cool bride. But in hindsight, that moment told a different story. It wasn't about fun, it was about control. Even on her wedding day, Meghan wasn't just enjoying the party. She was orchestrating it. She anticipated what others wanted before they even asked, and she made sure they got it. To Trevor, it may have seemed harmless, but that single act became symbolic, proof of a side of Meghan the world would never see again. The side that didn't just attend the party, she ran it. That same precision and authority would quietly resurface 5 years later during a night that could have rewritten royal history. Toronto, 2016. Meghan was filming Suits, living in a sleek apartment near the heart of the city. Prince Harry had just flown in, quietly without media, escorts, or palace approval, a private visit between two people who thought no one was watching. It was meant to be a private reunion, just two people quietly lost in each other's company. But behind the closed doors and pulled curtains, something far more secretive was unfolding. Whispers spread through Toronto's nightlife about what insiders called a run. In that scene, it wasn't about dinners or quiet drinks, it meant a night of indulgence. Music that thumped through the walls, substances passed around, and guests who understood the art of silence. And according to people who knew Meghan at the time, she wasn't simply part of it, she was the one running the show. What shocked people later wasn't that the night happened, but whose name got attached to it: Princess Eugenie, Prince Harry's own cousin. Whether she was actually involved or just mentioned by mistake, the connection alone was explosive. One misstep, one leaked photo, and the palace could have been thrown into complete turmoil. Harry's image was already fragile after the infamous Vegas scandal, and a rumor linking him, Meghan, and even a royal relative to an illegal party could have destroyed everything before the engagement whispers even started. Something went wrong that night, a close call no one saw coming. Someone talked or someone caught a glimpse of something they shouldn't have. In an instant, the carefree evening turned into a scramble to erase every trace of what took place. By morning, nothing remained, no photos, no gossip columns, no witnesses, just silence. And in stories like this, silence isn't peace, it's power. Those who were close to it claimed powerful hands stepped in quickly, influence, money, and a few discreet calls made sure the whole thing disappeared like it never existed. The palace had far too much at stake, and Meghan's rising status was too valuable to endanger. Within mere hours, the entire story vanished, as if it had never existed. But for those who were there, the memory of that night never truly disappeared. It was the moment the world almost glimpsed the Meghan Trevor once knew, calm, poised, and untouchable. The kind of woman who could step through chaos without a single mark. Yet that night in Toronto was the fire she nearly didn't escape. After that evening, Meghan's world began to shift, quietly, almost invisibly. There were no statements, no press coverage, no public signs of change, but behind the scenes, something deeper was happening. Contacts disappeared from her phone, numbers were erased, photos vanished from her social media as if she were rewriting her own story. The friends who once filled her Toronto home faded one by one. College friends who remembered the old Meghan stopped hearing from her. Even family members, the ones who once shared birthdays, dinners, and laughter, were quietly cut off without a word. To outsiders, it looked like progress. A successful actress polishing her image, preparing for the next big chapter of her life. But to those who'd known her best, it felt intentional, like she was closing every door behind her so no one could ever step back into her past. Trevor Engelson saw it happening from a distance. He'd seen it before, right after their split. When Meghan decided to move on, she didn't just walk away, she wiped the slate clean. Emails went unanswered, belongings were packed and shipped, mutual friends divided without discussion. It wasn't bitterness, it was precision. Every version of Meghan lived in its own sealed world, and the moment she entered a new one, the old version disappeared for good. By the time Meghan and Harry stepped into the public eye, the woman Trevor once remembered, the one who passed joints around at her wedding and kept Toronto nights alive, was gone. Not because she evolved, but because she'd erased that version of herself completely. When Meghan met Prince Harry, she didn't step into his world, she brought him into hers. Harry had always carried the reputation of being untamed. The Vegas photos, the late nights, the thrill-seeking, he was the prince who couldn't be controlled. But Meghan didn't try to restrain him, she did something far more deliberate. She made his chaos feel safe. Those who knew them in those early months said Meghan gave Harry something no one else could. Freedom without consequence. She knew how to make indulgence invisible, how to keep secrets sealed, how to give him the rush of danger without the fallout. Around her, Harry could breathe. He could be reckless, human, spontaneous, and no one beyond their circle would ever know. That's what drew him in. Meghan wasn't just a girlfriend, she was his escape route. But escapes come with a cost. Eventually, the one who guards your secrets owns your freedom. And that was Meghan's quiet power. She became the keeper of Harry's untold stories, the one person who could undo everything with a single truth. So when people wonder why he follows her so faithfully, maybe the reason is simple: no one else knows what she's protected him from. That kind of loyalty isn't built on love, it's built on fear. By then, Meghan Markle wasn't just a duchess, she was a phenomenon. Every lens, every interview, every headline told a version of her story, but none reflected the woman Trevor had once known. To her Hollywood friends, she was the driven actress chasing success. To her Toronto circle, she was the woman who made every night unforgettable. To the palace, she became the elegant duchess. And to Harry, she was everything he wasn't: composed, confident, and always in control. But the truth is, Meghan was all of those people at once, a master of transformation. She didn't just adapt, she rebuilt herself. Each new version was designed to outlast the last. She knew how to share just enough truth to sound genuine, while concealing the rest behind a polished smile. That was her genius. It wasn't performance, it was strategy. Whenever scandal threatened to rise, she was already ahead, rewriting the story before anyone realized there was one. The Meghan the world sees, the one who preaches kindness and resilience, isn't a lie, but it isn't the full truth either. She's a carefully crafted version, built to shine so brightly that the shadows behind her go unnoticed. As Meghan's fame expanded, her transformation went beyond emotion, it became physical. Old photos showed a softer face, a nose resembling her mother's. Newer images revealed sharper lines, a more sculpted look. Fans called it a Hollywood glow-up, but whispers from her Toronto circle suggested something darker, that the changes weren't for beauty, but for repair. Some claimed years of late-night habits had left their mark, and that surgery wasn't about vanity, but survival. If that was true, Meghan's reinvention wasn't just about royal image, it was about covering a past that couldn't survive the spotlight. With every rumored change, she reshaped her reflection. Each picture became a cleaner chapter, a smoother version of herself, one with fewer questions attached to her name. And just as she'd done with old friends, she erased the physical traces too, layer by layer, until no one could recognize what came before. People called it reinvention, but to those who knew her once, it looked more like disappearance. But Trevor saw it differently. He didn't see reinvention, he saw a woman carefully burying pieces of herself. Not to forget them, but to make sure no one else could ever uncover them again. Because every story has two sides, the one everyone knows and the one that's been buried deep. And Meghan Markle's story has always been about one thing: control. Control over her image, her chances, and her truth. She's rewritten her own past so precisely that even the royal household had to adjust to keep pace. Trevor's memories of her, the laughter, the secrets, the wild nights that danced on the edge of danger, are fragments of a story the world was never supposed to see. But those cracks in the surface are widening. the more that comes to light, the clearer it becomes that Meghan didn't simply stumble into fame. She built it, brick by brick, like an empire. Every connection, every calculated change, every friend she left behind was part of the structure protecting her rise. Behind that wall stands a woman who knows exactly who she is and exactly what she's had to bury to stay there. Because for every perfect photo and flawless speech, there's another version of Meghan, the one who whispered plans across Soho house tables, the one who made chaos feel comfortable, the one who could make a scandal vanish before the sun came up. And that's why her story continues to fascinate the world, because no matter how many times she rewrites it, one question refuses to fade. If this is what she erased, what else is still out there waiting to be found? When Meghan stepped through the palace gates, she wasn't just entering royalty, she was walking into an institution built on centuries of quiet power. For generations, every smile, every word, every gesture had been rehearsed and approved. But Meghan was never built for silent obedience. She arrived with Hollywood polish, media instinct, and a sense of control the monarchy wasn't prepared for. From day one, courtiers whispered that she didn't just play by the rules, she rewrote them. Meetings that once followed rigid hierarchy suddenly revolved around her timing, her tone, her message. To the old guard, it was chaos disguised as confidence. Behind the polished portraits, tension brewed. Staff began resigning in quick succession. Tabloids leaked stories of difficult Duchess behavior, and insiders claimed that Kate's calm diplomacy clashed with Meghan's sharp precision. In reality, it was a collision of worlds. Centuries of restraint meeting a woman who had built her life on control. Meghan's supporters said she brought modern energy, refusing to be boxed in by outdated protocol. Her critics said she saw the palace as another stage, with the royal family as her supporting cast. Somewhere in between lay the truth, wrapped in whispers that still echo through the palace halls. But beneath the etiquette and photo ops, the real battle wasn't between Meghan and Kate, it was between Meghan and the system itself. The firm thrived on predictability. Yet Meghan's unpredictability made her both valuable and dangerous. Her ability to charm headlines and shift narratives unsettled the establishment. For a family that had survived scandal by controlling silence, Meghan's mastery of controlled noise was an entirely new threat. She wasn't leaking secrets, she was directing attention. And every time the palace tried to contain her, the spotlight burned brighter. By the time the royal rift became public, damage control was impossible. Rumors of tears at fittings, private arguments, and protocol breaks dominated headlines. But what the public saw as drama was in truth a quiet struggle for narrative power. Meghan wanted ownership of her story while the palace wanted preservation of theirs. Every smile at balcony appearances, every gesture at charity events masked an invisible tug-of-war over who would define the future of the monarchy's image. And when that power clash reached its breaking point, the choice was clear. Meghan didn't lose the battle, she changed the field. Her departure wasn't surrender, it was strategy. Because if the palace refused to let her control the story from within, she'd tell it from the outside, louder, freer, and entirely on her own terms. When Meghan left the palace, she didn't step out of the spotlight, she redirected it. The tabloids thought they had her cornered, but they underestimated how well she understood their game. From her Hollywood days, Meghan knew one truth. You don't silence the media, you feed it a better story. Every headline became a weapon, every interview a calculated strike. As the British press painted her as manipulative, she reframed the narrative, not as a scandalized duchess, but as a silenced woman breaking free. The world didn't see a runaway royal, they saw a survivor. And for Meghan, that shift wasn't luck, it was design. The storm had been building for months. Anonymous leaks, insider quotes, palace sources, a shadow network working overtime to shape her downfall. But Meghan had learned to use pressure as fuel. Each negative headline was followed by a new initiative. A charity appearance, a podcast teaser, a speech about women's empowerment. She wasn't just defending her image, she was mastering the rhythm of outrage. When the noise peaked, she'd go quiet, forcing the tabloids to fill in the blanks with speculation, and speculation always sells better than silence. Harry, once the royal rebel, now became her shield. He spoke out against the same media machine that had turned his mother's life into a tragedy. Meghan, meanwhile, used her silence as armor. Together, they built a new strategy, one that turned public sympathy into power. Critics called it manipulation, supporters called it genius. Either way, the effect was undeniable. Meghan had gone from target to tactician. Then came the shock heard around the world. Megxit. The announcement wasn't a retreat, it was the final act of narrative control. She and Harry stepped down before the monarchy could define their exit for them. It was the perfect rebrand, the couple trading centuries of royal tradition for independence, privacy, and most importantly, authorship. Within weeks, documentaries, interviews, and brand partnerships followed. Every headline that once tried to break her now built her empire instead. But behind the flawless PR and polished statements, whispers continued. Former aides spoke of staged leaks, PR strategies mapped out like battle plans, and quiet deals with major networks to steer perception. The tabloids thought they were chasing Meghan. In reality, they were following her script. Because Meghan Markle didn't just survive the media war, she weaponized it. And for the first time, the crown wasn't the source of power. The story was, when Meghan and Harry stepped away from royal duty, the world expected silence. Instead, they built an empire. Podcasts, Netflix deals, global charities, every move polished, every project wrapped in purpose. What looked like retreat was actually expansion. Meghan was no longer bound by royal duty, she was crafting her own monarchy, one built not on bloodlines but on influence. Every interview became a stage, every headline a chess move. And while the palace clung to tradition, Meghan mastered evolution. But behind the inspiring speeches and carefully curated images, something else began to surface, a pattern that looked hauntingly familiar. The same precision that once defined her Hollywood hustle and her royal composure now powered her brand. Old friends replaced by advisors, genuine causes mixed with strategic messaging, every appearance planned, every silence deliberate. Even her most vulnerable moments, the tears, the confessions, the emotional revelations felt like part of the story she was still writing. For Meghan, authenticity wasn't exposure, it was control. The woman who once erased her past had now turned it into fuel. Every rumor, every insult, every headline became proof of survival, evidence of transformation. And yet, the closer she came to total freedom, the more tightly she seemed to script it. Trevor's version of Meghan, the one who could light up a room, command the night, and vanish before sunrise, was gone. But her methods lived on. Each reinvention left fewer traces of the woman she once was, replaced instead by a symbol that could never be touched. Still, the cracks never disappeared entirely. Former colleagues whispered about stories buried too deep to resurface, moments too risky to revisit. The world saw a woman who rose from the ashes, but Trevor saw the flames she left behind. Because every time Meghan rebuilt herself, something had to burn. Now, years later, the legend of Meghan Markle has outgrown the person. To some, she's a revolutionary rewriting the rules. To others, she's a strategist who never stopped playing the game. Maybe she's both. Her empire shines brightly, yet every glow needs a shadow. And for all the speeches, smiles, and perfectly framed photos, one truth lingers just beyond the edges of her narrative. If she could control every story told about her, how many stories are still untold?